Instead, she says, God is the very energy, the very intelligence, the very elegance and passion that makes it all go. This fits when we read the Beatitudes, because in them, Jesus is talking about our decreasing and God's increasing. They're talking about moving aside and allowing the flow of energy and spirit of God in the world. Blessed are the poor in spirit, because they're not full of themselves, but reveal God's love through their presence. Blessed are those who mourn, because life is not all about success for them, but rather life is in the success and in the failure, in the birth, the living, and in the dying. Blessed are those who step aside, who thirst for truth and justice and wholeness for humanity, because they recognize the value of all beings under God. Blessed are the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, because they allow the divine energy to move in and through the world, healing and transforming with love. Once I heard Henry Nouwen speak, and while I found that his Dutch accent made him very difficult to understand, I heard something very important that has always stayed with me. He said that people of faith live lives of downward mobility. Initially, I thought that must mean physically people of faith were to live lives of downward mobility. There I was, a new priest, and I figured he was right. All the priests that I knew were underpaid and living close to the poverty line. I got what it meant to be downwardly mobile. But as life has moved on, I have begun to understand downward mobility in another way, where more and more I have to let go of the ego that is getting in the way of loving. And God is always challenging me, pointing out new areas where I have to let go and let God. To my surprise, recently, God has been shining a light on something that needed to be challenged within me and changed, and that is a sense of classism in myself that I didn't realize that I had. I work with the homeless and low income, so I always assume I don't have a sense of self-importance. But the other day, one of our guests, as we call them, excitedly came to me, and she's homeless, she lives in one of the shelters, and she said, "Pat, we got in a whole new pile of shoes. Look through them, Pat, and you can get yourself a pair of shoes." And of course, these are old used shoes that people have donated. They were worn out, but passable, and the women were thrilled. But I was not about to wear a pair of someone else's old used shoes. What, me? So naturally, I was going to find a good excuse that there wouldn't be anything that would fit me or would be just right. Then one homeless woman reached down and said, "Here, these are perfect. Anne Klein, you're an 8.5. This is just the kind of shoe you like." I looked down and found that it was identical to the ones I had just bought the day before and was wearing at the time, but these were somewhat beaten up. We all laughed that she had nailed my taste, but what I realized was that I had to humble myself to take those shoes. I have worn them in order to remind myself of that lesson, and I find them to be worn out, somewhat uncomfortable because they're not worn to my feet. But for my clients, they are special and wonderful. Putting myself literally in their shoes has brought me down a peg and has enabled me to see them as equals, to open my heart a bit more and feel compassion and understanding. Seeing them as equals allows the Spirit to flow more readily between us, that spirit of grace, of caring, of having compassion. Downward mobility means more than living simply or sacrificing financially so that others can have more, though it means that too. It also means letting go of that sense of importance, or of that feeling of poor me, or that self-focus that we too often get trapped in. I wish that our politicians could move more into this realm where loving, divine energy connects, so that they would let go of their personal agendas and listen to others, to the divine spirit, to the needs of the world. It's something that we all need to do, and I encourage you all to look for that spirit, the movement of the Spirit in your life and in each other. May the divine energy move through us all, using us to bring healing and grace, to bring a new restoration and transformation to the world. May we all live in love and holiness. May we all become more and more the saints of God. Happy All Saints' Day. Amen.